The Arctic region is indeed a potential hotspot for geopolitical tensions due to its strategic importance and vast untapped resources. While the possibility of a full-scale world war over the Arctic remains unlikely at this stage, the melting ice and emerging opportunities in the region have certainly increased competition among countries, creating a situation that could escalate into more intense conflict if not managed properly. The Arctic is estimated to hold about 13% of the world's undiscovered oil and 30% of its undiscovered natural gas reserves, along with significant amounts of other valuable minerals like rare earth metals. Melting ice is making these resources more accessible, leading to a rush for exploration and extraction, with countries aiming to secure rights over these potentially lucrative resources. The melting ice in the Arctic is opening up new trade routes that were previously inaccessible or extremely challenging to navigate. These emerging routes have the potential to transform global shipping and trade by offering shorter, more efficient pathways between major markets, reducing shipping times, costs, and fuel consumption. Below is an in-depth exploration of the main new trade routes and their implications. Northern Sea Route (NSR) runs along the northern coast of Russia, from the Bering Strait, near Alaska, to the Barents Sea, near Norway. The NSR is the most commercially viable Arctic route, significantly reducing the distance between Europe and Asia. For example, the journey from Rotterdam, Netherlands, to Yokohama, Japan, via the NSR is about 40% shorter than using the Suez Canal. Shorter routes mean lower shipping costs, faster delivery times, and reduced fuel consumption, which can have economic and environmental benefits. Russia has been actively promoting the NSR, investing in icebreaker ships, ports, and infrastructure to facilitate year-round navigation. Traffic along the NSR has increased in recent years, particularly for bulk cargo, liquefied natural gas, LNG, and resource extraction. The route is still subject to seasonal variability, with the ice cover limiting navigation during winter months. Harsh weather conditions, lack of infrastructure, and the need for specialized icebreaker assistance can increase operational costs. Environmental concerns related to the fragile Arctic ecosystem, oil spills, and the impact of increased shipping traffic. Northwest Passage (NWP), a sea route that passes through the Canadian Arctic archipelago, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The NWP reduces the travel distance between Europe and the western coast of North America, potentially saving thousands of kilometers compared to routes through the Panama Canal. It could offer a competitive advantage for trade between ports on the eastern coast of the US and Canada and destinations in East Asia. The NWP has seen limited but growing use, primarily for research, tourism, and some cargo shipping. However, it remains more challenging to navigate than the NSR due to more unpredictable ice conditions. There are sovereignty disputes over the NWP. Canada claims it as internal waters, while other nations, like the US, consider it an international strait, complicating governance. Unlike the NSR, the NWP has more ice coverage, with ice conditions that can change rapidly. This unpredictability poses risks to vessels. The region has fewer developed ports, search and rescue capabilities, and satellite coverage, making navigation riskier. Environmental concerns include potential oil spills, disruption of marine wildlife, and increased greenhouse gas emissions from shipping. Transpolar Sea Route (TSR), a direct route across the Arctic Ocean, passing through the central Arctic, over the North Pole. This route would be the shortest path between Europe and East Asia, offering a straight-line route between major trading hubs. It would bypass territorial disputes in the Arctic, as it passes through international waters. The TSR is currently not viable for commercial shipping due to the thickness of sea ice, but it is expected to open up in the coming decades if the current rate of ice melting continues. The TSR is projected to be a key route in the second half of the 21st century if global warming trends persist. Ice conditions in the central Arctic are harsh, with thick, multi-year ice making navigation difficult. Even with icebreakers, the route is currently not safe for most commercial shipping. There are significant environmental concerns about increasing human activity in the central Arctic Ocean, which could impact the ecosystem. Impact of new Arctic trade routes. The new Arctic routes can reduce shipping distances by thousands of kilometers, translating to faster delivery times and lower costs for fuel and labor. These routes are especially attractive to industries that rely on rapid delivery, like electronics, perishable goods, and raw materials. NSR versus Suez Canal. For instance, the trip from Northern Europe to East Asia via the NSR is approximately 30 to 40% shorter than through the Suez Canal. This can save up to 10 to 15 days of travel. NWP versus Panama Canal. Shipping between Europe and the western US or Canada via the NWP can save thousands of kilometers compared to the Panama Canal, reducing transit time by 5 to 7 days. The potential for new trade routes has increased geopolitical competition among Arctic nations. Countries like Russia, the United States, Canada, Norway, and Denmark, via Greenland, are all asserting their territorial and economic interests in the region. Russia has the most extensive Arctic coastline and is heavily investing in Arctic infrastructure, including ports, icebreakers, and military bases, aiming to dominate the Northern Sea route. The US and Canada are strengthening their military presence in the Arctic to counter Russia's influence and to protect their interests. China, although not an Arctic nation, is increasingly involved in the region, declaring itself a near-Arctic state and investing in Arctic research and infrastructure projects as part of its broader strategic ambitions. Disputes over the continental shelf, especially in areas like the Lomonosov Ridge, remain unresolved. These could impact claims to potential resources, shipping routes, and fishing rights. Governance and legal issues arise over whether new routes, like the Northwest Passage, should be considered international straits or under national jurisdiction. Increased shipping traffic could disrupt marine life, including migratory patterns of species like whales and seals, which are sensitive to noise pollution. There is a risk of oil spills and accidents in a fragile environment where the impact would be catastrophic and recovery would be difficult. Black carbon emissions from ships could accelerate Arctic ice melt, creating a feedback loop that further accelerates global warming. While shorter shipping routes could reduce overall emissions from international shipping, the increase in economic activity and fossil fuel extraction in the Arctic could offset these benefits. The melting ice and the opening of routes may encourage more oil and gas extraction, which could contribute to long-term climate challenges. Countries with access to the Arctic could gain significant economic advantages. For instance, Russia's development of the Northern Sea route could make it a central player in global trade, particularly for shipments between Asia and Europe. There's a growing interest in developing Arctic infrastructure, including ports, railways, and pipelines, to support the extraction of resources and shipping. Major shipping companies are watching the Arctic developments closely, with some already conducting trial runs along the NSR. However, uncertainties remain about the reliability of the routes, insurance costs, and potential damage to ships from ice. Until these factors stabilize, commercial usage will likely be limited to niche industries, such as energy transport. The opening of Arctic trade routes represents both opportunities and challenges: shorter routes, new economic opportunities, and increased access to valuable natural resources. Territorial disputes, environmental risks, costly infrastructure development, and the need for international cooperation to manage the region sustainably. The Arctic is becoming an arena where economic interests, environmental concerns, and geopolitical strategies intersect. Managing these dynamics will require careful diplomacy, adherence to international agreements, and a strong commitment to preserving the unique Arctic environment, which is already under severe pressure from climate change. The region's development will be a crucial test of whether the world can balance economic opportunity with environmental stewardship and global stability. The Arctic has strategic military importance, especially for nations like the United States and Russia, who already have a significant military presence there. For countries like Russia, the Arctic is crucial for nuclear deterrence and submarine operations. Other countries like the US and Canada are strengthening their military presence in the region. The increase in military activities, naval exercises, and surveillance has raised concerns about potential militarization and increased risks of military confrontations. The primary countries with significant interests in the Arctic include: Russia holds the largest share of the Arctic coastline and has heavily invested in Arctic infrastructure and military presence. Russia has also been at the forefront of icebreaker ship development, which is crucial for navigating the icy waters. Although the US is a latecomer in terms of Arctic exploration, it has become more active recently, with an increasing focus on military presence and partnerships with allies like Canada. Canada claims a significant portion of the Arctic and considers the Northwest Passage to be part of its internal waters, leading to disputes with other nations that see it as an international waterway. Norway has significant oil and gas exploration interests in the Arctic region and maintains a robust presence through scientific research and monitoring activities. Denmark, via Greenland, controls Greenland, a key territory in the Arctic with strategic and resource interests. The melting ice has also attracted US interest in buying Greenland. Although not an Arctic nation, China has declared itself a near-Arctic state and has been increasing its presence through scientific research, investment in infrastructure, and ambitions for a polar Silk Road as part of its Belt and Road Initiative. United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. Under UNCLOS, countries have exclusive economic zones, EEZ, extending up to 200 nautical miles from their coastlines. Beyond that, countries can claim an extended continental shelf if they can prove that it is a natural extension of their landmass. Several overlapping claims in the Arctic are under review, such as Russia's claim to a large portion of the Arctic seabed, which is contested by other countries like Canada and Denmark. Arctic Council is an intergovernmental forum consisting of Arctic nations, US, Russia, Canada, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland, focused on cooperation, scientific research, and sustainable development. The Council, however, does not address military security issues, limiting its ability to resolve conflicts related to territorial and strategic interests. There are overlapping claims in regions like the Lomonosov Ridge and the Chukchi Plateau, with nations seeking to extend their influence over the seabed. The tensions over the Arctic have generally remained at a diplomatic level, with countries emphasizing peaceful resolution through international laws and agreements. However, there is a visible military buildup, especially by Russia and the United States, leading to concerns about potential miscalculations and accidents that could escalate into conflict. As countries like Russia continue to ramp up their Arctic drilling and exploration, and other nations increase their presence, there is a potential for disputes over territory and resource rights to intensify. The Arctic is warming more than twice as fast as the global average, leading to unpredictable changes in ice coverage, impacting the economic viability of resource extraction and shipping routes. In a worst-case scenario, increased military presence and competition for resources could lead to localized skirmishes or confrontations, especially if there are disputes over national boundaries, territorial waters, or contested shipping lanes. A collapse of diplomatic channels or disregard for international agreements like UNCLOS could increase tensions, especially if states refuse to abide by arbitration outcomes. Environmental factors could also play a role, as the melting ice may lead to disputes over fishing rights, pollution, or oil spills, sparking environmental conflicts. There is also a strong emphasis on cooperation, with the Arctic Council playing a crucial role in fostering dialogue. Some countries are working on joint ventures for resource exploration, scientific research, and sustainable development. Technological advancements could make Arctic resources easier to extract in a less damaging way, reducing competition. Climate agreements and a focus on reducing carbon emissions could shift attention away from fossil fuels, reducing the urgency to exploit Arctic resources. While the Arctic is a region of increasing strategic importance, it's more likely that the current competition will manifest in a new Cold War scenario, characterized by diplomatic tensions, military posturing, and economic competition, rather than an outright world war. The role of international cooperation, adherence to legal frameworks, and global awareness of the environmental consequences will be crucial in determining whether the Arctic becomes a zone of conflict or a model of cooperation in a rapidly changing world. The Arctic's future hinges on how nations balance the opportunities presented by a melting Arctic with the need to preserve peace, protect the environment, and uphold international laws. Thank you for watching. We have some amazing videos coming up, so stay tuned for more updates on global geopolitics. And make sure to hit the subscribe button for more.